Hello, everyone, and welcome to Horsesmouth's Building a Better Advisory Business live show, where we talk with experts who have the insight, tactics, and strategies that you can use to better serve your clients and to attract new ones. Now, this live show airs every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on Horsesmouth's LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube channels. This week, Horsesmouth Editor-in-Chief Sean Bailey will be talking with Joe Messinger of the College Aid Pro about the opportunities that exist for advisors with college planning. So to help us kick it off, are there any advisors listening who already consider college planning to be, one of their core service offerings? If so, go ahead and say hi in chat wherever you are watching, and I will go ahead and turn things over to Sean and Joe.
Welcome back, everybody. We appreciate you being on. And, the college planning niche for advisors is one I've been very interested in over the last 5 years or so. Here at Horsesmouth, we have Savvy College Planning Program run by Lynn O'Shaughnessy, which happens to have with it as part of the program this amazing software, College Aid Pro, created by Joe Messinger and his firm. So, Joe, thanks for being on. And just kind of, to get us started, to me, one of the challenges that advisors face in terms of differentiating themselves in the marketplace these days is, all right, what services are you offering that are backing up your value proposition or embedded in your value proposition? And, I think there's a number of topics that can help advisors differentiate themselves in the marketplace, such as tax planning. But college is another one, and it's fascinating to me because it came on my radar when we started hearing from advisors who were saying things like, it's amazing. I got pre-retirees coming in and they've got like a $200,000 mortgage debt. And I asked them, what the heck was going on here, because you've earned good money all your life and everything. And they say, oh, well, our kid wanted to go to this special college and it was really expensive. And so we just took out a second mortgage and it turned into a 6-year odyssey instead of 4 years. And so, unfortunately, that's where we are. But we wanted to be sure that he had a chance to, do what he wanted to do. And so we began to realize, so college planning, paying for college is actually a risk that people need to address in terms of having financial security in retirement. So we're going to talk more about this. But Joe, I think what I would like for you to do is let's go all the way back to the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the business as a financial advisor, and then bring us through your journey in the college planning topic and how that led to you ultimately starting a software company.
Yeah, I'll give you the 3-minute origin story. This is and thanks for having me. Appreciate being here with you guys, and love Savvy College Planning and the work that the group does. When you talk about those niches, I look at like all the savvy things that you guys have, and those are niches. And so, but college is obviously mine. And for me, my journey started. I graduated from Penn State in 2000. I had a culinary and hospitality degree, so I chefed restaurants. But quickly learned that I didn't want to keep those hours. So I had a friend that worked at, I guess it was IDS at the time, which is now Ameriprise, and he said, "Hey, you should really consider financial advising. You have you did a minor in finance," and I said, "I know nothing about personal finance." But lo and behold, I interviewed a few companies and got into financial services. Worked for some larger firms for the better part of a decade. Went into leadership, recruiting, training, development. Which I still love because I feel like that's a big part of what we do with our software platform and training. But in 2009, broke away from those larger firms and started a fee-only registered investment advisor in Columbus, Ohio, with my partner still to this day, who's like a brother to me. That really, we started that firm in 2009 with the impetus was to go fee-only, be able to offer college planning as a service. Because the big firms we were at, it was a no-no. And that's still the case at a lot of firms today, offering this late stage college planning. So we saw an opportunity. I was 31, he was 29. So for us, we saw an opportunity to go and serve people that when they do surveys of families, people that have kids, 73% of them say their number one financial concern is how to pay for college. Right. And advisors on the other side say our number one concern is how to grow our business, attract new clients. I'm going, hey, well, there's a match here. So we set out on that mission, and this is 12 years later. We've built a nice firm. I say jokingly, we have 100 million reasons why you might want to consider this niche. That's because we manage it north of 100 million in assets. And we built that firm 99% on doing college planning, getting out in the community, growing that practice. And as we did that, as you peel back the layers of the onion in college planning, there's a lot of complexity to it. For me, it's kind of like once you get into a niche and you know things, it's kind of like the Matrix. Like, you can kind of plug and play, and it's like Neo gave you a chip or something. And that's where we're at now. But, what I learned was, you could really stick out from the crowd, because if I go to a conference and I have 100 CFPs in the room, and CPAs, I say, how many of you have an advanced credential? They all raise their hand. And I say, how many of you consider your experts in financial aid planning? And all but one hand maybe goes down. And I'm saying, look, like, this is the public is telling us that they need help with this topic, and we're telling them we don't do this, or we're saying things like, there's lots of ways to pay for college, only one way to pay for retirement, and that's just not helpful. So that evolved, from about 2016, 17, my career trajectory changed. And I said, hey, look, we've got to really raise the bar on college funding advice across the industry, because this student loan crisis is getting out of control. And this is, when I started our practice, we've doubled our student loan debt in that time. And the cost of college has doubled in that time, right. In just over a decade. So the problem is just getting more exacerbated. So, now we created a training program. Capstone College Partners was that firm. We traded training. We did a 10-hour course. There's only 2 pages in the CFP curriculum on this stuff, and we created a 10-hour course. So obviously there was a gap in knowledge. But then, at the end of that training, everybody would say, what software do we use? And I said, well, they're all kind of marginal at best. They either only show the sticker price, or they talk about averages. Then we evolved to begin to create College Aid Pro, which is really about the philosophy there is like every student's a snowflake in this process. They're all unique, right? Even if you have multiple kids, they have different opportunities for financial aid and scholarships across the country. So now, the software has evolved to now being, serving over 500 firms across the country, and really, I think, helping advisors do great college planning, give great advice with confidence and ease, and do it in a repeatable and scalable way. So that's right. Kind of what we try to coach today.
Good. That's a great overview. But let's go back to when you started out as an advisor. I want to go to what was exactly happening when the lights started to go off. What were you that you were being attracted
Yeah,
to the college issue? What, I mean,
yeah.
literally in the office with clients, can you tell us like, what made you say, damn it, I think that somebody needs to do something about it?
Yeah, so it is interesting because that is part of why we said we got to focus on this, because at the time my friends were graduating from graduate school, doctor, lawyer, MBA, that kind of thing, and they would come out and say, "Hey, you're a financial advisor. You've been doing it for like 7, 8 years. Like, how do I deal with this debt burden that I have?" And I said, "Well, we're never taught that." They're like, "What do you mean? You're a financial advisor? It's my number one thing I need to solve financially." I said, "We're never taught that." And then on the front end, people would say, I would ask throughout our firm. I had a 150 person office, and I would ask all the top advisors, and they're, "Oh, you don't want to do that. Oh, you don't want to mess with that. Like, just tell people no." And I said, "Yeah, there's an opportunity here," because I was a younger advisor, and my partner and I said, "This is a way for us to go up market." What I meant by that was, he's 30, I'm around 30. And we're saying, well, look, we can go attract 45 to 50-year-olds. Everybody's out there looking for the 62-year-old that has a liquidity event in retirement. I said, well, we are too. We just want to get them when they're 50.
Right.
Right. That's how our practice really evolved, was like, if you can serve people, get them in earlier. If you solve their number one concern, you help their kids get a great education at a price their family can afford, that they're proud of, you're going to get the rest of the business. And that's really what it evolved into, because college planning is really just the hook to really help people get a good understanding. It's really the first inflection point in your financial planning that you have to do something. And that's the other thing about college planning. I said, look, there's a deadline and a benefit to doing something. And it's a constantly renewing market. Every year there's a freshman in high school and there's freshmen in college, and all of those families always have this same like stress, anxiety, fear. And I think our job as advisors has really evolved into being like, I think like 75-80% counselor and 20 to 25% financial. So there's just, I think what we talk about too is like, if you can connect with people, behaviorally and emotionally on this topic, and you can help them have their kids bring them in this conversation, because they're having trouble with the conversation too. Having the money conversation with a 16, 17-year-old, if you can bridge that gap, coming out of your mouth versus their parents, you could say the exact same sentence and it sounds completely different, right? For a teenager. So that's part of it too, is we saw this real opportunity to connect with the parents, learn about them. When we do our initial screenings, discovery calls, people come in. The interesting thing about college is people come in with the kitchen sink. I mean, what I mean, like, they bring in tax returns and W-2s and all their statements. And I never experienced anything like that in all my decade of experience in financial services. They come in with something, they maybe need to do a rollover, but with college, they bring everything because they're so freaked out about the cost.
Right. So yeah, that's good. Now, I want to spend a little more time on that, but I also want to go back to the legacy thinking, which still exists in a good portion of the industry, that, oh, college planning is just about 529s. There's no money in it, so don't go for it. Right. Can you talk a little bit about that? And, before we got on, we were talking about the, surveys showing that more advisors are getting involved in this space, but can you let's try and overcome that objection or burst that bubble for those who are still adhering to the notion that there may be no business in it. It doesn't make sense to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I would think about it is, if you're a good financial planner and you're calling yourself a fiduciary, when people tell you the number one concern is paying for college, and you're saying things like, we don't do that, or that there's only one way to pay for retirement, one way to pay for college, the conversation that's happening at home is, honey, if you get in, we'll figure it out.
Right.
Right. So when you have clients, if you're working with people that are like, right now, Gen X, when I talk about the business case, like, Gen X right now is 40 to 55 years old. Right. And we all know that the great wealth transfer is coming. So if you're a forward thinking firm and you want to have a practice that's going to be around for the next 30 years, the estimates are up to $70 trillion is going to pass over the next 25 years. So if you want to participate in that, you've got to get those clients now. So if you have an aging demographic, And this is a challenge when we work with, banks, credit unions, especially community banks, some of these forward-thinking institutions that are going, gosh, our average age of our client is 62. Well, how do you have a meaningful conversation with their kids? You can't just say, hey, we really want to manage the money when your mom and dad die. But if you have a thing to open the door to say, hey, grandpa and grandma have identified that they want to help pay for college. Let's bring you in. We've got some great tools, and you can bridge that gap. And you're building 3 generations now of client relationship. Don't think of the kids as another client. Think of it as you're building generational clients. I mean, we've got boomers, Gen X, and now millennials that are, we've got 3 generations of clients that, we see the future is like, if you want to really work with families, and because you may know the statistic better than I, but what I hear is about 8 out of 10 people fire their parents' advisor when they pass away.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
the HVAC comes and it's gone. Yeah.
Yep. So that, and the other part is if you're looking at like, how do you want to attract and acquire clients, like doing something that's unique, for whatever reason, the college funding, not just 529s, the solution has always been save for college and take out loans. Well, how do we shop for college smarter? How do we help make more informed college buying decisions? Because it really is that consumer decision. That's kind of that, we have Wall Street and the federal government on both sides. But the real part is, how do you help them discover schools and make sure that they're not getting in over their heads with student loans and not robbing retirement? Because the number one detriment to on-time retirement is overpaying for college.
Right.
So, we kind of started with that. So the business case couldn't be more, everybody's chasing, the retiree with a liquidity event. They're all chasing.
Sure. Right. So let's talk about a few eye openers that an advisor who doesn't know much about this space and has previously ignored it, but then is finally convinced, okay, I want to get into it. I want to learn a little more. I think one of the things that people say is, oh, college is so expensive, these high sticker prices and very competitive. And it turns out that, well, that's not exactly true in terms of what people actually end up paying and the relative, competitiveness of getting accepted to college. So can you talk a little bit about how you have gone through that process of learning, like, oh, this isn't exactly the impression you get in the mainstream media is not, in fact, the reality?
Yeah, I think the way I would state it really simply is the sticker price of college is irrelevant if you know how to shop. So, the sticker price is completely irrelevant. So you think of like the value of being able to show people proactively what they're going to pay for college instead of reactively. That's one of the big things that we've learned is like, if you can see into the future, if you have a crystal ball for college, like the value you can add for a client. Like, so what I mean by that is, if you go here and we set a budget, what's the gap? So what's the loans and what's the loan payments? And then also, what are you going to make when you come out of school? So for us, when we talk about like, how do you do this in a repeatable, scalable way to have a process around it? And like as advisors, so financial advisors and financial planning is about seeing into the future. But all the time with college, we're actually doing accounting work. We're accounting for the past. Because the idea of if you get in, we'll figure it out, like that's accounting. Like the 23-year-old you would not be happy with your decision. So that's one of the things we've learned. And I think now in like our work with Lynn, we're a great 1-2 punch, because if you can learn like what is creating, like how does colleges discount, how do you know which schools operate their business which way? I mean, for example, there's 50 schools in this country that are some of our top name brand schools, like all of the Ivy Leagues. They don't have scholarships. Right. It doesn't matter how smart you are, right? But then you've got these other group of schools, there's hundreds of them that are small privates that they would love to give you scholarships, and they discount their tuition over 50%. So,
right.
It's just like, so the thing we try to evolve. Right. So we're trying to evolve, because if you're using, eMoney, Money Guide Pro, Right Capital, great software, but all they have is a sticker price. And that sticker price is irrelevant. Like nobody's paying that, some of these $70,000 schools. So if you can break through the noise and provide great guidance, and it also, when we talk about this informed planning, if you can do that and help them proactively understand which schools might be a great choice and what types of schools, and financial aid policy, like this stuff is so confusing for financial advisors. Put yourself in the shoes of a 17-year-old that's never had any personal finance education, or a parent that's an artist or an architect. Like this stuff is that's where we really add value, because we talk about what's your value proposition as an advisor these days. It's not investment management. Like the investment management, the industry is telling us it's worth 15 to 20 basis points. So we've got to do more for our 1%.
Exactly. And, you mentioned before Lynn, who is, is the leader of our Horse's Mouth Savvy College Planning Program. She's the subject matter expert. And I've learned a huge amount from her over the years. And before we went live, we were discussing how I myself have just gone through the college planning ringer in the last year, and my daughter is a freshman in college right now. And, one of the things I learned from Lynn early on was like, most admissions directors, 50% of admissions directors, or like nearly all admissions directors, are only meeting around 50% of their goal in terms of filling the seats. Once you pull out the Ivies and the super high brand schools. And that means that it's actually a buyer's market. And when we were doing a college tour last October, even though Lynn had prepared me for this, I kind of fell out of my seat. We were sitting there with the admissions director and the dean of this college that my daughter is now going to. And toward the end of the conversation, the dean said, to my daughter, so what's your GPA? And she said, it's, like 3.9 or something like that. And the admissions director leaned over to me and said, she'll get about $28,000 in aid. And I like, what? Not aid, well, scholarship, actually. This is the big thing people don't understand. They think you're fairly well off. You're not destitute at all. How are we going to, we're not going to qualify for scholarship money, but $28,000. And can you talk a little bit about that and the fact that your wealthy clients, that the advisor has some real opportunities to deliver, some, jaw-dropping advice and guidance around, the difference between the sticker price and reality?
Yeah. So it's, how do you break through the noise? How do you understand it? We talk about that in terms of the way that I kind of coach around that is you got to understand the school's business model, because schools are a business. It's a $600 billion a year industry. And the way that these schools run their business is fundamentally different in a lot of ways. So, a school like you're talking about, hey, we want to attract great students because the cost of college keeps going up, right? So, but the sticker price is becoming more and more irrelevant. So what we talk about is like, well, why does the cost keep going up? Well, because if this school says they're 68,000, we better be 69. If they're 69, we better be 70. So it keeps going up, and that's continued. And then you go and you do the tour on the campus, and they say, well, nobody pays that here, right? So that's what you heard. And they said, you're a 3.9. You're going to get 28,000. You're like, gosh, well, what is that? $112,000. $112,000 you just learned that you're going to have in your pocket over 4 years. I mean, that's crazy. But with being able to deliver that value for clients and also informing your financial plan, right? If you're a good financial planner, like you don't need to plan for the 300,000. You need to plan for maybe 180. Like that's a big difference. That's a huge swing in your financial plan. And at this, I call it the crater in the middle of your financial plan. Like if you could understand and help your clients understand, hey, most people know 50 name brand schools. So the way we shop for college is all wrong in this country. We tell kids, go out, get the grades, get the ACT, do the clubs, do the sports, do all the things, right, to get into these amazing colleges. And I have this story every year. The phone rings and somebody says, my son got into Columbia, and Columbia is $84,000 a year. And they said, well, I just assumed they get some scholarships because they were valedictorian, that had a perfect ACT and 4.9 GPA. And I said, well, I could have saved you a lot of headache and heartache, because Columbia does not have scholarships. It doesn't matter how smart you are. That's just how they run their business. They don't have to. So if you're on the other end of the spectrum, if you're a need-based family, they meet 100% of your need. So if their formula says that you can afford $10,000, well, guess what? The other 74,000 comes from the school's endowment. So it's just the way they run their business. So as advisors, if we can understand how did they award based on need or merit or a combination of the two, and being able to give them, like I said, that proactive insight into what's a predictive outcome. And we love that as advisors, to be able to show clients, we do Monte Carlos and all this stuff for retirement planning. It's like, well, what if you can say, like, look, like this school, you're going to pay 84,000, but this school, you'll likely only pay 45 at a private school that costs the same. So, I mean, that type of value, we can add it. And like, I look at what we've done in our tool, like with our advanced search function. I don't want to talk about it too much, but like we've basically created an experience like shopping for an airline ticket on Travelocity Orbits, where you can say, I want this major within a day's drive of home. I want it to be a Forbes ranked school, and I just want to see automatic scholarships. So like that's really, I think, our game changer for advisors, because we were talking about like, what's the intimidation of getting into this marketplace, and really helping families, because it's like, man, there's a lot to know. It's like, man, if you can get some training and some knowledge from Savvy College Planning, and then you have a great software to deliver good advice in this area, it's not as huge of a lift, I don't think, as it used to be. That's our whole goal with our software, is to raise the bar in advice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to be able to have a meaty deliverable for the client meeting with so many financial planning topics is absolutely critical. And it is the thing that's amazing, about your software, that it does enable the advisor who is pursuing this topic and this expertise to also, buttress all the other knowledge they've developed into deliverables that they can go over with families in the meetings. And that's a powerful aspect of it. Before we go on, I just wanted to check with Doug Pierce. Doug, do we have any questions or comments at this point?
We did have a question from Bill, who I get the impression has been nodding his head vigorously to everything you guys have been talking about. But he said, but the public knows that those schools will discount by 50%. Then they tell me, why do I need you?
From an advisory standpoint?
Yeah.
It's like why do they need advice? So I think as advisors, I always say, come from a place of abundance, give great information. So if you give away 99% of the information, it's the tip of the spear people that are going, yeah, but I'm divorced, or I've got a trust account, or my grandparents want to help pay for college. It's those people that have unique circumstances that are going, and how does this impact me? Because there's a lot of tools out there for the consumer that are way too based on the averages. Right. I give the example of Georgetown University. Like, if you go and you tour the campus, they'll say, oh, the average student here, over 50% of kids get financial aid, and the average student only pays $29,000. You're like, okay, well, am I paying 85 or am I paying 0? So as an advisor, like it's too much focused on averages. Whereas if you can give more laser focused, really highly tailored predictive estimates, like that's what we do as advisors. That's where we add our value. Because like if you look at I call it 1, 14, 85. Like these are the numbers of 1% of people out there are going to just go and they'll write the check. These are 1%ers. The 84%, these are people that probably can't afford advisors. And then there's this 14% of people that hire advisors. But why do they hire us? They hire us because we solve problems and they want to delegate it. They don't want to do all the research. They don't have time, right? Their hourly rate's $400 or $500 an hour. Like when we talk about, high income, high net worth people, attorneys, I have CFPs that are clients of mine. Because they simply want to make sure that they're making an informed buying decision. Even people that have the money to write the check, they still want to understand, what's the value quotient here? Is it really worth me paying $100,000 more to go to Stanford versus this school in my backyard? I mean, that's the kind of thing that they're really looking at, because people that have money, they have it usually because they're smart with it.
Right.
And if your outcome's not that much better, if you're only going to make 48,000 versus 46,000 going to one school over another, they're going, I just don't think it's worth it, honey. Like, I mean, it's really those kind of conversations that, that's I feel like that's our role. I mentioned that, like our role as a counselor. You can talk about the black and, the black and white numbers, and that's really what we want to present to people. But if you can massage that, help them have those meaningful money conversations with spouses, getting them on the same page, right? Because their college experience could be very different. I went to private college. It was all paid for. I finished in 4 years, no debt. And then on the other side, the wife saying, I scratched and clawed and did it over 7 years. It's bridging those gaps and having those money conversations. I feel like that's really our role as advisors these days.
Right. I also think there was embedded in Bill's question there, the idea that families know all this stuff. And I think you run into some families where the super mom is just like reading everything and trying, but a lot really don't. And
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I learned from Lynn what is this misperception sometimes the public also has that the value of a degree from a certain school, that it's all very, you start up here and it's all very, I'm not sure what the right word is to describe what I'm trying to say. It's like, oh, well, if this school is a little more well-known, then your child is going to, who has a degree from that school is going to make 15% more than somebody who went to this school that's lesser known. And of course, it turns out that, that's not the case at all. And that there's actually data where you can help families make decisions. I recall one of Lynn's anecdotes, I think, was about a family. The father came to somebody, and I think the kid got into Providence College and either BU or Boston College. I don't remember which. And the kid was going to be a business major in marketing. And I think the father was saying, well, more people have heard of Boston College than they've heard of Providence College. So we should probably go there, but it's going to be costing us, $15,000 more per year to do that. And the advisor in this case was able to show, because there is data out there on starting salaries of people who graduate from specific colleges, what the starting salary is going to be. And he was able to show that business major from BC and Providence in marketing, there's like a $500 difference between the two schools. Yet here he was about to commit to, 15, 30, $60,000 more, whatever. Yeah. And that these are the kinds of things that that advisors learn in the Savvy College Planning Program, and that your software helps flesh out. That are the kinds of things an advisor named Mike Pierschel says, make us look like geniuses when you're able to, lay a bomb on somebody and open their eyes about, oh, I hadn't really thought about it, I hadn't really seen it from that perspective. So
I'll make a comment on that, because I wrote a white paper. It's been a few years back, but we talked about, I call it the value quotient, right? Like, is it really a return on education, a return on that investment? Is it that much greater? And what I basically said was, well, if this school costs us $100,000, this costs $200,000. Say we have the money to write the check. You're going to a business and entrepreneur major. So I gave this case, like, so who ends up better? So if you come out of school, we have two choices. I can give you $100,000 to start a business, or I can put that $100,000 in just a brokerage account. And that brokerage account, if I just let it sit in an S&P 500 fund, I don't do anything fancy, you got $3 million when you're 65. $3 million. So you tell me which person ends up better in life.
Yeah,
and
right.
So like that's the hard facts. And then if there's any people that are readers, there's a great book called Where You Go Is Not Who You Will Be by Frank Bruni. And it's just kind of this idea of like, we get so enamored with the sexy names and the badge we want to wear at the football Friday when we go out to the high school. And it's like this idea of like, look, like if your kids are like on the border of getting into these schools and they happen to eke their way in, they're used to being top performers. They're used to being the top 1% in their school. And if they go to some of these schools, it actually is a detriment to them. Whereas if they would go to some of these other schools, that they would be top of the class and they would continue to have that kind of experience. It's a really interesting kind of conversation around just, again, where you go is not who you will be. And obviously it just talks about how these kids that go to schools there, they can be a rock star. It lifts them up, it raises them up. So kind of the same thread.
So Joe, advisors, when we talk about niches, we'll often say, okay, but how do I find this niche? How am I going to be in front of these people? Can you talk to us from your perspective, what you've seen in terms of how advisors start once they get that baseline of knowledge that they get from the Savvy College Planning Program, and they get to learn to work with your software? But how do they get out into the community? How are they meeting people? What are your tips and advice in that area?
So I went to a cocktail party last night, just a small gathering. And people say, well, what do you do? Right. And I'd say, well, I'm in personal finance. What does that mean? Well, actually, If I said I'm a financial planner or an investment advisor, people flock to the other side of the room. But if I say, I help families solve their number one problem, which is paying for college for their kids, and they say, "Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more." They want to learn more because if you have 100 advisors in your town, you can stick out from the crowd by saying it. Just lead with, you solve this big problem for families. We help them find schools that'll give them the most free money. So if you lead with that, it's a huge difference. And then the other thing I think about, and I know you guys do a lot of work around it too, centers of influence are a tremendous way that we all grow our business. But when I look at my centers of influence, they're not attorneys, they're not CPAs. They're ACT prep companies, they're career counseling companies, and they're education consultants. That's 99% of my business. No other advisor is talking to my ACT prep company. And these companies, they have to do 150, 200, 300 kids a year. So if I thought, like, when we throw up a joint webinar with them, like I ask advisors all the time, like, what would you do if 750 people landed in your lap tomorrow? Would you know how to nurture those? Because we do quarterly webinars, and we routinely get, at this point, 500 to 1,000 webinar attendees. And that's just from our partnerships. Because people have said the holy grail is getting into high schools, right? So if you can do that, great. But I have found people that are in private practice that are working with families, the education consultants. That's one thing that Lynn and I have talked about a lot in both of our teachings is like, look, like, these people are admissions folks. They're going to get their kids into the best college, but they're not talking about the money because they're not trained. They're admissions people. Like, they'll help you write the essay. They'll help make sure that your curriculum is up to date and all that stuff. But like, they're saying, oh my gosh, you can help us figure out the financial part? Absolutely. I mean, that to me, like, you talk about center of influence, I can count on one hand the number of referrals I've gotten from CPAs over the years. They are stingy with them. They happen once in a while, but even with those folks, though, once you say we have a college planning solution, I got a call yesterday from a CPA that I know in town, and he said, "Hey, I talked to Mark, and he said you're the guy that can help me figure out how to get more free money for college." I wasn't getting that referral because we have investment management. I was getting that referral because he knows me as the college guy. So it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, good. Doug, how are we doing? We got any other questions there at this point?
Yes, we do. Actually, we have a question from Matt here. Go ahead and flip the screen over so we can read it. He said, most information references the general quality of the school and the same top 10 national schools. Where can we find deep rankings of specific programs like business, biology, nursing, etc., within different schools?
You probably don't want to take that one, Sean, but I will.
Yes.
So we actually, I think it was either this morning or yesterday. I actually just put out kind of my thoughts on the rankings. U.S. News and Forbes and Money Magazine, they all have rankings. So those rankings, to me, if you look at a big university, my office is based in Columbus, Ohio, and Ohio State is obviously there. I'm not a Buckeye, I'm a Penn Stater, and our schools are very similar. In the fact that Ohio State has 155 majors. And I think my alma mater has 152. Well, they're not good at all, right? So the idea would be peel back the layers of the onion, understand what the outcomes are from those college universities. Like, this isn't probably a level of nerdiness that most advisors would get into, but what I find is most advisors that show up to these talks, they're interested because they've got their own kids in high school. When we have them, and then you figure out that there's a huge opportunity. So peeling back the layers of those onions. So I talked last night, some friends went to dinner with it, and they were just talking about, well, they're very open at this school about talking about the 5-year plan. Well, what does that mean? Well, the 5-year plan is you do 2 6-month co-ops. So it's a 5-year plan. It's 4 years of education, but there's 6 months of co-op. Right. And then job placement from those are like 99.5%. As long as you're not a complete jerk and mess it up, you'll probably get a job. So having that, and when we talk to employers, how are you actually preparing us for what's after college? Right. That's the thing I would talk about. And, just think about it. It's like, when you're going to high school, how do we get to and through college? And then what's that college doing to help you get that better job? Is it worth the premium? Because I will also tell you, like, when you look at certain colleges that are, liberal arts colleges where they don't even have majors, some of them, their results are really good because they create well-rounded humans. And there's certain, certain careers, like, if you want to get into investment banking or you want to work for one of the top 10 law firms, there's certain schools you have to go to. If you go, but where you go for grad school is more important than undergrad. Right. So if you want to get into law, like, yeah, you got to go to Georgetown or Harvard, like if you want to get in one of the big firms, but it's, so I kind of use that analogy, peel back the layers of the onion, understand what's the quality of that major from that school, if you really get into it. And I'll give a concrete example. There's a school, Northern Kentucky. Many of you probably never heard of it, right? It's not a top 10 school, but if you peel back layers of the onion, they say they're one of the top data science schools in the world. Why is that? Because somebody wrote a big check for data science, and they've got $100 million there sitting there, and they recruit kids, they give them great scholarships, and they have 99% placement. And they come out of school making over $85,000 in data science, because that's the highest. So it's just this idea of like, go a little bit deeper if you can. So hopefully that's helpful for whoever asked questions.
Yeah. Good. Doug, you said, was there more than one? Or
yeah, there's a couple more. So
James is asking, let's go through them.
What is the best way for advisors to get paid via college? And Bill had a companion question. Does Joe charge for his software and his college planning time?
Yeah. So I'll answer the first one first. So like how do advisors get paid? So we're at the level now where we're trying to talk to large organizations about getting you all approved to be able to offer fee for service. We need to get paid for our time. We give away way too much free advice in our industry. No other industry does that, the way that we do. Like we do free financial analysis and free retirement reports and all this stuff. Like for us, we see advisors charging anywhere from $300 to $1,000 for a 60-minute session. And with that comes the deliverables of our software. I mean, that's one of the things that, because you talked about earlier, like deliverables are really important. So if you can productize what you're putting together, we call them college pre-approval sessions. So when I coach advisors, like it's paid prospect. That's what it is. Because what that leads to is, oh, well, you've got 2 more kids. Oh, so you've got 529s for them as well. We're going to help you with this one, but, oh, well, I don't know about the rest of your tax planning. You're a business owner. Are you doing, are the kids on payroll? Have you ever considered tuition reimbursement plan? Do you know that was even possible, right? To run tax-free money through your business to pay for tuition for your kids. I mean, those conversations open up and they're going, why didn't my advisor tell me about that? And I said, I don't know. In pretty short order, those prospects become our clients, because it just opens that doorway to talk about everything. But that's when we talk about college planning time, like we see it's paid prospect. It's $500 to $1,000 for an hour of your time if you've got software that can guide you through it, and you've got deliverables from Savvy too, like that. Say, hey, here's 50 schools that are not going to give you any scholarships, and here's 50 schools that are going to give you great scholarships. Like there's a ton of value in there. So and then from there, like I said, like it just evolves into what's next. One of the things I say with like anytime you have a discovery call, or you have a limited engagement, limited scope engagement, like we kind of tell advisors to do, what's the next logical step? That's what people want to know. So as you go through, every meeting has an arc. I'm a thespian. I did plays and stuff, and like there's act 1, 2, and 3, right? If you have a half-hour session, you should know exactly what's going to happen in that 30 minutes. Right. So, act 1, you're getting involved, you talk, it's all happy feely. And then there's a little trauma, and then you've got to have resolution, right? Act 3. And then resolution is, we create relationships where we're going to help people get to and through college for all 3 of your kids and to an on-time retirement debt free. Does that sound like a relationship you'd like to have with a financial advisor?
Right. Yep.
So it's like creating that arc. You can charge for your time, but it really becomes for us in our firm, it then becomes, it's just part of our financial planning process. It informs the rest of the financial plan. And so one of the things I'll say too is like, it's about balancing competing needs, right? Current lifestyle, college, other goal, and then retirement. But when we have people get into their dream school, they say, gosh, we'd really like to make this happen. And I say, well, let's look at the levers we can pull, right? So with retirement, like say, look, if we drop back our retirement contributions for 4 years just to the match with the employer plan, and then we ratchet them back up, model that out. And if you worked another 2 years, your plan's still over 80% on Monte Carlo. Does that sound reasonable? Absolutely. We can do it. Yeah, we can do it. So imagine that relationship. You got to get that buy-in from people, I think, to say, understand, like, well, if we'll work with it, but I want you to understand the trade-offs here. if we want to go to American, that's $78,000 a year. And we've made that possible. We've informed the financial plan. So I think that you just continue to build the relationship.
The other point about the paid prospecting is, I've probably done maybe in the last 5 years a dozen case studies with advisors who have gone out into the community and positioned themselves as somebody who can help with college planning advice. And so we've talked about this issue of conversion of these people becoming, your full-time clients after the college engagement is over with. And a fairly common thing that we see is that there's people out there that have been maxing out their 401ks and paying off the house, and they've got a decent job. They haven't had an advisor because the do-it-yourself approach has been relatively doable. And then they hit this college thing, and it's like, okay, we need help here. And then they have this time-pressured, limited exposure to an advisor who's really helping them on a nitty-gritty but important issue. And then it just positions the advisor perfectly for bridging to, additional conversations about managing their money and the kinds of other services that you provide. And just many advisors say, yeah, these people become clients, at that point after the college thing's done, or even as part of it.
Yeah.
What has been your
logical next step?
Yeah,
it's a
right.
logical next step, right? I mean, and if you're paid for your time and you provide great value in that meeting, if they don't become a long-term client, guess what happens? They go tell their brother and their sister-in-law and their coworkers. Yep. And I can't count the number of people that, come in as from an introduction. There's a difference between a referral and an introduction, right?
Right.
Hey, Joe, hey, Tom, you've got to talk to Joe. This is the guy that blew our minds. We thought everything was too good to be true. I saw a comment come in that it's too good to be true. It's like, we do hear that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, let's see how it plays out. And, so that kind of side, I just feel like it's a good outcome, because like, if you're paid for your time, you're not as worried. You don't have to sell. You've already sold. But it's just a logical progression, and really people fall into different buckets. I kind of have four. So if you have 4 meetings like this, there's one that just doesn't financially qualify, but they got a ton of value out of your service doing this for them. And I do a lot of pro bono efforts as well. So if you're looking for a pro bono effort, there's a lot of families that could use help in this area. But that's not always the case. They'll pay for a session. They just nothing else for us to do. Number 2, they're a DIYer with their investments, and they're just not interested in the other stuff. And that's okay, because DIYers, guess what? Everybody talks to them about what they should do with their money. So those people get referred. Yeah. And number 3, they're advisors like their brother or their cousin or whatever, and they're never going to move that money. So those are the 3. And then that 4th one, they financially qualify. They're a good fit. They're a great ideal client for us. And for us, we have a fee minimum of $3,000 per year. We don't have an asset minimum. We just do it on fee. It can either be assets or paid out of monthly. So when we talk about some of these, the next question, or one of the questions was, how do you get paid? Retainer business is really good. So helping people to and through this process, they'll gladly pay you to help them. So hopefully that's answers, kind of dovetails of what you were talking about.
Good. Doug, any more questions?
Let's see here. We did have a question from Grant. Where can you find scholarship information?
We recently brought on Wendy Nelson Merit Scholarship List. And that's part of Savvy College Planning, but she's actually become part of our team. So our software, College Aid Pro, I'm gonna advertise a little bit if that's okay. But College Aid Pro has every scholarship for every school in the country, and we'll give you a predictive outcome with about a 90% accuracy of what that scholarship will be. So I say that because the schools are 90% of the money comes from the schools. It's doled out through grants and scholarships. If it's need-based, it's grants. If it's merit-based, it's scholarships. 90% of the money that's free is doled out through the colleges, be that federal, state, or school endowment money, but 90% is there. The other 10% is private, private scholarships. So private scholarships are great There's over $20 billion in private scholarships. Problem is college costs $600 billion a year. So private scholarships are awesome. So we actually have a private scholarship search tool baked into our platform as well. The value of ours and having that in there is that we don't advertise to people. People have a private scholarship search, and you've provided them with a tool, and there's a portal that families can use. And a lot of advisors, quite honestly, they just give the families access to College Aid Pro. They don't really do a lot of work. So they just say, hey, here's this software we've invested in. Here's how it works. We'll set you up at the beginning, but you go shop for schools, you look for scholarships, you do your thing, you do the trainings inside of the platform on how to use the tool. And a lot of advisors, like, it's just a value add. They say, hey, use the College Aid Pro family portal. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing niche, and I really hope that more advisors take the opportunity to start extending the service. It's a great way to build connections to those Gen Xers and millennial families that are starting to come up through the ranks. They're heading to that pre-retiree space. They've got kids ready for college, and it is really, I'm always just amazed at how valuable the information is in there to families that have this very time-pressured, need-based thing. This is, we're about to get into October, and school has started, and in every community around the country, there are parents who are suddenly taking some very deep breaths because the kid is a senior. They cannot believe that the kid is a senior. It's been such a blur. And they're like panicking about, oh my God, how are we going to pay for college? These people may have an advisor, they may not have an advisor, but they need your help. And it is just an amazing opportunity. So Doug, I think we'll wrap it up unless there's one last question.
Yeah, we did have one come in from Bill. Well, actually, let's do Kevin's came in first. What do you use to demo a high school counselor to show what you do?
I mean, for me, we've got some collateral we provide advisors, and these days, I show them our software. I mean, because the one thing that school districts and counselors at high schools, even privates, they're challenged by letting in somebody at a for-profit company. But when you have something unique and truly something you can add value for their families and take work off their plate, because they're getting the questions. They need, oftentimes I say, just consider us a resource. So if I show them what we can do, I show them how our software can help both those that are low income, middle income, and high income, because it's those high income people, they're not going to give any financial advice to a person that makes $350,000, and they shouldn't be.
Right.
I'll gladly do that. So, and one of the, I wanted to just comment or piggyback on what you had said, Sean, in the fact that I may have already mentioned in this podcast, but we want advisors to do something. Either learn this stuff yourself. It doesn't have to be your full-time niche, but learn this stuff, have enough knowledge, or insource it. Have a junior on your team go through Savvy College Planning and use our resources. Because that junior, 31 years old, man, they're right in the middle of an 18-year-old and a 50-year-old, and they have college debt. They all do. So, and have them learn or outsource it, delegate it. We've got people that do this full time and just do college funding. So I just, as we kind of get to wrapping up here, I just want advisors to don't do nothing, do something, take action on this.
Yeah. And on the how to connect with a college counselor, it's like, definitely know advisors who said, look, I have this presentation, 4 ways to cut college costs. You can show them the handouts and the slides, and people are like, wow, okay, this is amazing. I've never seen anything like this. And I definitely can't help families with it. And it does, in certain situations, open the door to the advisor being invited, or these days, maybe putting on a virtual event, or hopefully in the future, putting on live events. Maybe that's already going on. So there's just a lot of ways to do that for sure.
Yeah. And I'd say one thing there, Sean, too, is when you go into counselors, if you're in a school district, don't go in there saying that, I've got awesome tools and I can help you, et cetera. Go in and say, hey, can we have a meeting? I'd just like to learn more what you're doing around it, financing college and paying for college. And just open that door, because you want to learn what they're already doing.
Right.
And then, then you can say, oh, well, actually, we have this presentation, 4 ways to cut the cost of college, that I think could really complement the great work you're already doing.
Yep.
Because it's going the step beyond. But I would say, have that I want to talk about what you're doing as it relates to college planning, and that opens the door.
Yep. Okay, folks. Well, that's the Building a Better Business episode for this week, our live stream with Joe Messenger, College Aid Pro. You can check out Joe and his software. You can check out Savvy College Planning at horsesmouth.com/college. You'll learn about Joe's software program and how it fits into the Savvy College Planning program as well. It is an amazing niche, and I encourage people to, get all over it. It's a huge opportunity, folks, and it's totally doable. So, Joe, thanks so much. We really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's a great conversation. Thanks, guys.